You know, you are 100% right with that, right? But unfortunately, that's what they've done, and they've completely stolen everyone's birthrights, right? As one of the people, as being state citizens. And you go look up in the U.S. Styles Manual, it even tells you, we're all nationals of the state that we're born in. But they did, using the 14th Amendment, they have created a whole system that is created a slave system, right? But the more that I've got into this, and the more that the more research I've done, the more I'm digging through, the whole foundation of everything that's been established, just because they have created a fraudulent system, that something created in a fraud, it's not valid, right? So what we the people have to do to restore, to get our true standing and our rights back, we have to educate ourselves on what our founders established for us. And I've said this in other videos. They established these things for us and future generations, and once more people start getting the comprehension of how our republics are supposed to be operating, and what our public servants are bound to through the trust indentures, the constitutions that they willingly agree to be governed by. Now, I know I've seen other people say, oh, they don't got proper oaths and all this nonsense. It doesn't matter. They're sitting in our seats, right? They're sitting in positions being paid with our money in these public servant capacities. We just have to start holding them to it. We have to stop playing in their system that they've created, because the whole system that they've created is to bypass the whole fundamental due process of law, is how they get around all of our rights. And I see all these people trying to argue their statutes and their codes and these court rules. We have to go back to the foundation, right? They need to prove where they even were delegated the authority to do this in the first place, and they can't do it. That's where we can really shut them down, is by going back to the very foundation. And we have to take these things to the United States Supreme Court. And we have to shut down this, and Speaker Johnson's even came out about it, right? The totalitarian administrative state, the fourth branch of government that we see how all these states they're operating. Like in my case here, where Judge Green admitted that the Secretary of State controls the judicial branch. So we have all three branches. The legislative branch is creating these tribunals. Then you have the executive branch are putting their employees in place, and they've been pushing this system for so long. But it's not a legit system, right? So the things that are created in fraud, it has no true authority. But because people are not using the foundation, they're not using the actual principles that these people are bound to, we're all getting train wrecked. But and if we get the numbers, we start getting more people coming together and using the fundamental principles, right? The settled maxims of law that they are bound to, that the whole foundation is created upon. They're not going to last. This whole system would crumble overnight if we could even get 30% of the population. I mean, hell, even probably 20% of the population that could come together and hold them to the fundamentals in the trust indentures that they're bound to. We could collapse their slave system, right, overnight. And that's what I've come to realize, that, it's tied to the Social Security, the birth certificates, all that stuff ties back to the 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen. But none of that even applies to us, and it wasn't even lawfully ratified. I mean, you can go look at the 1967 congressional record, tells you it was never lawfully ratified. And you can go look the slaughterhouse cases, right? The dual citizenship shows you that the U.S. citizen, that's federal property, right? I mean, and once people start comprehending what's going on with that, we could shut their system down overnight. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, you're right. In these hospitals, they're the moment everyone's signing these birth certificates, and they're becoming their these 14th Amendment U.S. citizen federal property. They've been telling the system that they're federal property, and that's how they're regulating them. But it's not legit, right? I mean, it's not something, like I said, or like I've already said, something created in fraud. It's fraud. It has no standing. We just got to educate ourselves and hold them to it.